the truth. It's something people fear more than anything in the world.
Hi guys, I'm Truly Nix, and this is Penal Talk. This is the podcast about the U.S. judicial and penal system and its historical context. This is episode 1. In episode 0, I go into more context into what the show is about. So if you want a little bit more detail about what the whole series of the show will be about, check out episode 0. So today I want to speak about, I guess, how law came to be in the United States. And so we're talking about laws that existed prior to the Constitution, prior to the Articles of Confederation. We are talking about the colonial period, anything prior to the Declaration of Independence, when America was like, you know, we're not having it, Britain. This is over. So we're talking when we were 13 colonies. The 13 colonies, British colonies, because we operated under British law prior to the Declaration of Independence. So we're not so much concerned with British law during the colony period or the colonist pre-colonial period. We're not concerned about British law. What we're concerned about is local governance, and as we should be concerned about that today. So it's always important what's going on the local level in government. Who is running the hood? So that's what we're talking about, local governance during pre-colonial time. So just so we can get the 13 colonies out of the way, let's give a rundown of what they were. Massachusetts Bay, Rhode Island and Providence Plantations. Rhode Island and Providence Plantations is actually the whole title of Rhode Island. It included plantation. And only recently, I think, definitely in the last decade, did Rhode Island remove Providence Plantation from the title of its state. I guess, kind of embarrassing to have plantation in the title of your state. So, okay, we have Rhode Island, we have Connecticut, we have New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. That made up the 13 British colonies. What I find interesting about the pre-judicial system in the colonies is that we all know that the British left Great Britain and came to the Americas. The colonists came to Americas because of religious persecution. They wanted to be able to freely practice their own religion. What is interesting about this is that they wanted to practice their religion, but not freedom of religion for all religions, just they wanted to be able to practice their religion. So, although they were being controlled by Britain on a vast level, the local level was actually run by, okay, of course, rich landowners, surprise, and the church by religious organizations. Religion, freaky, but that says a lot about how our laws are today. If you look very closely at our laws today, they all kind of center around some aspect of "in God we trust." So in colonial law, because there weren't a lot of citizens, there weren't a lot of people, they actually needed people to not be in jail. They needed people to work the land, to get back into society. So if there was some law or, some grievances that were done, the idea was to get that person to repent, to, admit their fallacy, and then deal out punishment and get them back into the community. The idea of putting tons of people in jail for extended periods of time was not in the game plan of developing the colonies in the States. They wanted you out and moving. But the things that were against the law were crazy. So like I said, most laws were based around religion. There was no official police agency during pre-colonial periods. They had developed something called the Watchmen, and that fell apart pretty quickly because they didn't have the money to pay the watchmen. So most things were governed by the church with the assistance of the local settlers. Like, so if you had to round up a posse to go get someone, it was done all on volunteer basis. So let's outline some things that were considered against the law. Lawless acts, lying, idleness, not working, drunkenness, various sexual offenses, and generally bad behavior is a crime. Playing certain card games is a crime. Shuffleboard is a crime. Those who flirted faced a fine. Flirting was a crime. So catcalling to the chick across the street, crime. So many of the laws really weren't geared toward the general population. They were made with the idea of keeping servants, indentured servants, because they had those before slavery, or during the time of slavery, slaves and children. It was created to keep those populations of people really in line. The biggest crime of all, heresy. Going against the church, because that's going against God. Big. Also, witchcraft. Huge. So, what were the repercussions of breaking the law? Meaning, what was the sentencing? What was the punishment? We have whipping to the pillar. So you know that thing that had a hole in it that they would put people's head in and close it up and leave you sitting and standing there all day long to be humiliated by the public. They were big into that. But if you went into that, maybe you're lucky. You just get to stay there all day without any food or water. Or you can get a whipping. So imagine having your head lodged into some contraption and being whipped. So that was one of the punishments. Once in a while, they had public hangings. Not huge, but they had them. And when they had them, it was a social event. They gathered everyone around in the colony to come witness this public hanging. The idea is to deter future occurrences of breaking the law. So don't even bother to put them in jail. We've got these short, quick punishments and then death. Have a hole made in your tongue with a red hot iron. That's a lot. Stand for a period of time on the gallows, which is like a wooden structure built for hanging, with a rope around their neck. So they're not hanging you, they're not killing you, they just have you hanging there with a rope around your neck, slowly strangling you. I mean, at least you didn't die, right? That's the punishment. So there's some lesser laws that are punishable. One of them is breaking the Sabbath, not going to church. So you see where I'm going with this. All the laws, all centered around the church and God. And so this is why the church is so powerful, because if you belong to the church, that means you control the people. Pre-colonial people were pretty superstitious, especially since a lot of them didn't survive moving to the colonies. Like, this was a tough terrain to live in. I think in Jamestown, like 500 of the settlers, out of 500, 60 survived. That's a lot. So, I mean, often when people can't explain what to me appears to be the obvious, there's superstitions that are created to explain why just the most horrible, awful things are happening. So the church also, pushed that idea forward, hence pushing the control of the people. and all the laws that surround the church. So that's pretty much how laws happen on the local level in pre-colonial history. And not too long after that, after more people started to populate the colonies and there was government established, meaning that there were governors put in place to start creating positions for people who would do policing. That would be the sheriff. The sheriffs were, that role itself was created, and the sheriff was responsible for arresting, for picking jurors, to be the sheriff, you were responsible for a number of things. Another very powerful position appointed by the governor. You ran the jails. You selected the juries. You were in charge of the prisoners. And you basically served as the top government agent for the colonies. Fast forward, after rich landowners and appointed government officials and the church ran the land for a few years, the colonists started to get restless and angry with England, and hence, moving on to breaking free of Britain, the Declaration of Independence. And after that came the Articles of Confederation. That is the first constitution prior to the constitution that we now live by, and which all laws are currently based from. So the next time that we speak, we'll be going over the Articles of Confederation, which is the first constitutional document that we use to govern the not-so United States of America. I'm Julie Nix. This is Penal Talk. Until next time, bye.
Let me ask you this. This is a problem that I see, and this is something that we're going to have to confront. Individuals who just do not want to accept that there are racist and racial components to these cases. And the fact of the matter is that a police officer would not have